Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tipped. Julian here for another Drops episode. And this is the Drops episode for week 19 of the fantasy hockey season. Guys, you're getting really close to the playoffs at this point. So if you haven't checked out my playoff video to see which teams have the best and most optimized schedule for the playoffs, I would definitely suggest you can check that out right up there. Now, I'm actually feeling a lot better, so next video will be shot back in my regular studio, so no worries about that, guys. Without further ado, let's jump right into the content, and let's start with some forwards that you have to maybe make the difficult decision of dropping. And first on the list is Lawson Crouse of the Arizona Coyotes, and he's been really not that great in 2024. Obviously, he had a fantastic 2023, and with the Coyotes having a great schedule this past week, I suggested that you guys might want to even consider picking up Crouse, even though he hadn't been that great. The floor is still decent. Now that Arizona's great week schedule is done, you can consider dropping him. Now, the Coyotes don't have the worst schedule this coming week, so you can consider holding him as well if there's nobody better on the waiver wire, but definitely someone you can drop if there's someone on the waiver wire you would like a little bit more. Joel Farabee is ice cold as well. He has 1 point in his last 6 games, and he's just not looking that great. Obviously, he had a great super hot point streak going for a while there, and he was added in a lot of leagues, which is why he's up to 42% rostered. But at this point, I think that he's pretty safe to drop in the majority of the leagues. If you're in a super deep league, I would hang on to him because he definitely will bounce back at some point, but I just don't know how fast that'll happen. But if you're in a shallower league, definitely a pretty easy drop there with Joel Farabee. Jake DeBrusk of the Boston Bruins, I've had him on this list quite a few weeks now, and he's still not getting top power play time. And at this point, guys, Jake DeBrusk, even though he might have a hot few games in a row, he goes back to doing absolutely nothing after that. So Jake DeBrusk, to me, is a pretty easy drop. Sean Monahan and Cole Perfetti of the Winnipeg Jets are both playing on their second line, and since arriving in Winnipeg, Sean Monahan hasn't done a whole lot of anything, and despite him getting pretty good deployment as well as top power play time, he hasn't been producing. So I can't recommend holding him right now. Obviously, Monahan is that kind of player, though. He'll go a whole bunch of games without doing anything, and then he'll start popping off points every single night. We just have to wait for that to happen, but if you can't afford to wait for that to happen, which most of you probably can't, Monahan is a pretty easy drop. And Cole Perfetti also is a very, very streaky player from what we've seen past couple of years. He'll have an incredibly great point streak like he did earlier in the year, but right now, guys, he's very, very hard to hold, so he's definitely droppable as well. On defense, I have Shane Gostisbehere, and he's not a must drop at all, but he is super, super streaky as well. He is 100% reliant on the power play and hasn't really been putting up that many points anyway, and also his peripherals are awful. So he really does depend on those power play points. And, you know, he can go a few games without putting up any, and then he can go a game putting up like 4. So he's definitely a kind of boom or bust play every single night that you're playing him. But if there's someone who's safer out there, I'll probably take that over Shane Gostisbehere. Obviously, though, in deep leagues, you're hanging on to him. Mikhail Sergachev, still owned in 58% of leagues, needs to be dropped in all league formats. They've already confirmed that he's out for the rest of the year, so unless you're in a keeper league that has a lot of keepers, I would drop him. And even then, Sergachev hasn't been very good this year because they've been giving Hedman all the top power play time, which was a little bit surprising for me considering that last year they gave Sergachev more top power play time than they did Hedman. Neil Pionk of the Winnipeg Jets, 50% rostered. He's kind of hot and cold as well. He'll go through stretches where he'll score a few points, and he's always putting up peripherals, right? Hits and blocks are always kind of there for Pionk, particularly the hits. But if he's going through stretches like this where he's not putting up points, he's kind of rough to be holding on your team. So definitely not a must drop, but for somebody like a little bit better out there, definitely a droppable player. Oliver Ekman-Larsson at this point, I don't know why 31% of you are still hanging on to him. He gives a little bit of a floor, but the ceiling isn't overly high. And while he might score a couple of points in a couple of consecutive games, that makes people excited, but really the opportunity is not really there for Ekman-Larsson. And Owen Power is out for a few weeks now, guys, and even when he was healthy, he was pretty useless fantasy-wise, so definitely an easy drop there. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. If you enjoyed my content today, drop a like and hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.